Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I take a call on behalf of New Zealand First in this omnibus bill covering cheque duty, climate change and building supplies. Firstly, cheque duty. Too late to really comment on this. This should have been done years ago. Again, it's a little trifling matter that the government has pulled out in this particular budget, but it is just another way of them padding it out to make the budget look better than it actually is. And cheque duty should have been done away with years ago, not 6 years into this government, given the number of cheques that are issued. And I understand that I was told this morning the largest issuer of cheques in this country is the Inland Revenue Department, and they are exempt from paying cheque duty. So isn't that ironic that the government, the biggest single writer of cheques, doesn't have to pay duty on it? So that was a bit of a nonsense, and the fact that New Zealanders haven't been paying duty on electronic transactions and other forms of transactions has made it quite an anomaly in its time that went. However, moving on to climate change, New Zealand First wants the New Zealand government to have a serious response to climate change, and this is not it. What is now apparent is that a great majority of countries see climate change as a result of increasing greenhouse gases and as a major global challenge. New Zealand First does not argue with this. Climate change is a reality. New Zealand First is opposed to the New Zealand Emissions Trading Scheme, the ETS. We consider it far too complex, far too impractical. It was concocted by financial theorists for the benefit, it would seem, of the financial sector. A Merrill Lynch solution, or really non-solution from the likes of Merrill Lynch. As a serious response to climate change, it has been, as we foresaw, a dismal failure. Window dressing. The ETS has failed to deliver significant emissions reductions. In addition, there is little evidence that it is actually helping industry change to a lower carbon world. The ETS has been systematically rorted, and we've seen the unit values go from something like $23 or $4 down to a couple of dollars internationally. What an absolute embarrassment in terms of that scheme. A vast industry has grown around ETS, but it has delivered few real results, and this bill is part of the mess that has ensued from the ETS. It is a consequence of the mess and confusion and financial game playing that has come from the ETS. The ETS was a half-baked scheme, and the need for this bill demonstrates that. It is time that New Zealand had a serious policy and plan to address climate change. Climate change, possibly the greatest challenge to our future. Yesterday's budget pretending it was not happening at all. That exposes the total lack of vision of the national government. This budget failed to deliver any meaningful policy on climate change, and for that and other reasons it is a manifest failure. On to the Building Supplies Bill. We have great difficulties with this bill. New Zealand First really does question this as well. New Zealand First anticipates that there will be all sorts of unintended consequences from this building supplies bill. Removing anti-dumping duties could adversely impact the New Zealand economy. There was a reason for anti-dumping duties being in place. It was to protect local manufacturers. We have seen no evidence that the negative impacts on New Zealand jobs or businesses has been fully considered or taken into account in devising this bill. It smacks of being another of National's knee-jerk responses to the housing crisis, a crisis of their own making. But instead of taking meaningful measures, specifically curbing immigration and foreign buying of New Zealand housing stock, they decide to throw local manufacturers of construction products to the wolves. In this bill, there is no actual mechanism for ensuring that the claimed cost reductions will in fact be translated into lower house prices. It's a hope and a dream that by getting cheaper imported goods into this country for construction, that the price of houses will go down. Well, Mr Speaker, it will simply mean that the margins for many of those constructing the houses and putting them up will go up. So there may be cost reductions, but that remains to be seen, and quite frankly, we are very sceptical. It's also questionable, and today Elephant Plasterboard, a New Zealand manufacturer of plasterboard, has said, we also need to be very mindful of the products coming in, whether they will have full warranties, guarantees and longevity. There will be increased supplies from the likes of China, Thailand, Korea and Indonesia, and questionable quality standards. So, Mr. Speaker, many of us have witnessed the leaky homes of the 1990s that came about from the national government changing the building code and allowing building products and kiln-dried timber to be used during the 1990s, and now in the 2000s we ended up spending in at least $11 billion, heading towards $20 billion for leaky homes because of inferior products being used in the construction of our residential houses. We have a potential here by knocking local manufacture on the head and good quality local manufacture on the head, and allowing increased imports of questionable source, whether we will go through another period where what will the plasterboard standards be? What will the standards of the nails be? And I can assure you, I have built a number of properties and I've used nails, and nails are deteriorating in quality year on year. So what will be the quality of the nails? Recently, I was told of trailers being sold in New Zealand that are coming in complete from Asia, and they are now only giving them 2 years warranty on trailers, where New Zealand manufacturers of similar trailers give you virtually a lifetime guarantee. They'll go on and on and on. A good, decent trailer will last forever, but the ones that are being brought in now, being sold considerably cheaper, are only given 2 years warranty out of China. The government has plucked a figure out of thin air as the cost reductions on a standard house. A nice round figure of $3,500, which sounds good, but it is totally unquantifiable. Where did this figure come from? Answer: the back of some envelope in Treasury. We predict that there will be business closures in the building supplies sector. There will be job losses. The cost of building supplies is an important issue, but ill-considered legislation is not the answer. Reducing GST on building supplies was another and better option. There is no evidence that option was considered. It is critically important that we protect the manufacturing base and not just expose it at short notice to unfair competition. But once again, the fate of the New Zealand manufacturing base appears not to matter to this government. And this government has spent much of this year poo-pooing the opposition who raised concerns about the state of our manufacturing. Sure, our agricultural manufacturing is doing very well, and some sectors of manufacturing are surviving in terms of IT and smart manufacture. But Mr. Speaker, there are areas of our, what you would say, manufacturing for home products, consumer products, building products, products used in everyday life in New Zealand that are produced in this country that are under real pressure. And those manufacturers, who are in many cases also exporters, under a very high New Zealand dollar, heading towards 90 cents, are in dire straits in many cases. This is yet another nail in the coffin for local manufacturer. Taking away the last of those anti-dumping duties will allow greater imports from many Asian countries in particular, where their cost of production is so much less, where their cost of labour is so much less, and where their quality of materials is perhaps more questionable. Mr. Speaker, therefore New Zealand First has great reservations about aspects of this total bill.
Call Simon O'Connor.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to rise and to speak to the budget measures, miscellaneous fiscal measures bill.